With Victor Shi. This is still Victor Shi, and it is Wednesday, December 14th. Hopefully, all of you are having a great Wednesday so far. We are halfway through the week. I'm still here in Washington, D.C. Today is my last day here, and it's really, I think, it was such a great moment because you all know that I was here for the signing of the Respect for Marriage Act yesterday. That happened, and it was such an important moment, I think, and it was really awesome to see so many people there. I saw some old faces. As some of you know, I was interning there over the summer and got to see some old friends and kind of make my way around the hallways again. And it was just very nostalgic. And so to see the building again was great. And then to also go to the signing ceremony was really wonderful. You saw, I think, 5,000 people ended up RSVPing. I'm not sure what the total turnout was, but it was such a great event. There were performances by people like Sam Smith, who has such a great voice. There was Cyndi Lauper, and many other great performances. And then, of course, President Biden and Vice President Harris. That was, I think, one of the best speeches I saw Vice President Harris give. Obviously, back when she was Attorney General, that's when she helped preside over same-sex marriage being constitutionally embedded within the state. Also, President Biden having such a big role to play during Obergefell and really making same-sex marriage part of the national conversation. Interracial marriage was also codified yesterday, and so it was a great day for, I think, the country, for people who just want equality and love to win at the end of the day. And like President Biden said yesterday, I think the sad reality is that the impetus for this decision, the impetus for this bill to actually go into effect was the Supreme Court and Justice Thomas saying essentially that interracial marriage as well as same-sex marriage will be on the chopping block with the Dobbs decision. And so that was the impetus of this decision. And I think just kind of really reflects the broader culture and the broader movement of the importance of codifying all of these rights. And I think we can't stop here. We have to continue fighting for other sorts of rights too, things like voting rights and other I think. And so it was a great moment, a worthy day of celebration. The energy was very, very high. And I was definitely very comforted by so many people that I saw in this fight to keep on protecting our rights against the backdrop of Republicans who are so hell-bent on taking them away, and also the Supreme Court that is hell-bent on taking them away. Before our guest joins, I'm just going to quickly get into some of the news of the day. So first we have January 6th. So the committee is going to be conducting another hearing on Monday. So we'll be hearing that. And they also are going to be making some criminal referrals on that day too. So we're going to be seeing some exciting action on that day when it comes to the January 6th committee. Obviously, I've been following the case very, very closely, as I think the entire nation should really be following the case. That's going to be the last hearing before the new Congress gets sworn in. And we've already seen this committee draw out the just wide array of evidence, both before January 6th, the plot to overturn the election, on January 6th, which is the physical attack date. And then to this day, we've seen this continuation of this attempt by the Republican Party to destroy democracy. And I think that's the goal of the committee, is to really make this become apparent for the American people and to present the facts to the American people. So Monday is going to be a day where I think we're all going to be watching very, very closely. I'll provide updates. The committee hearing, I think, is supposed to be prime time. So not again at 11 a.m. or 1 p.m. Eastern. It's supposed to be right during prime time. And it's going to be a very, very exciting committee hearing for all of us to watch. So that's what I'll be watching. And then I think the next day, we're also supposed to see some exciting, I think, reports coming out of the January 6th committee. And I think here we have Maxwell Frost with us. So with that, I'm going to introduce our guest. He is Congressman-elect Maxwell Frost right now, which has a nice ring to it. And I assume you're calling in from Florida, right?
Yes, yeah, I'm in Florida, if you can tell from the sun.
The sunlight.
Yeah,
so
how's everything going?
It's good. So I'm currently in D.C., where it's really, really cold. I came from L.A., and I feel like L.A. has not prepared me for this weather to the extent that it should. So I'm grateful to be here, though. Today is my last day, and I'm excited to be talking to you because, as we all know, young voters made such an important role in this election, especially in key battleground states. They turned out, and they also helped elect you, and we're so grateful that you're going to be in Congress this term around. So I want to get into all of that, but first, I know that this is the 10-year anniversary of Sandy Hook. I know that was a key decision and you're kind of getting involved in politics and you're running for office. So first of all, I just want you to kind of help our audience understand kind of what this day means to you and how you are reflecting and thinking about this day 10 years after that horrific shooting in Sandy Hook.
Well, I mean, obviously, Sandy Hook is what got me involved in this work in the first place. It's really the tragedy, but also I always have to say it wasn't just the tragedy; it was the advocacy and the families that came around and said, "We're going to fight for a better world." Really, that's what put me into action, and it changed my life. I mean, it's been 10 years of advocacy, fighting for a better world because of the advocacy of these families and the people who were impacted. 10 years later, we see that we've had some great wins. And at the same time, though, we're still very far from where we need to be on gun violence in this country. We still lose 100 lives a day due to gun violence. The leading cause of death for children just a few months ago went from automobile accidents to guns in this country in 2022. If your child were to die, the leading cause of that death would be getting shot. And I hate to be morbid and kind of just say it straight up like that. It's hard to hear, but I think it's important so we recognize the moment we're in and how this moment and this issue, it's a tragedy, requires the utmost urgency to deal with. So just feeling really grounded today. We have a lot of work to do, but I'm just honored to be in the halls to be able to work and do it with advocates, activists, organizers, and other members of Congress.
Absolutely. And we're grateful that you're going to be beating the drum in Congress and representing Gen Zers. And so many people, including myself, have been following your journey very closely. And I've been seeing all your posts on Twitter about what it's like to be a soon-to-be member of Congress with all your orientations. But I first want you to take us to November 8th and that night, because that was a moment that I think was obviously big for you. And I was in DC with Voters of Tomorrow, a group that had the honor of endorsing you. And when you won, the entire group just started jumping up and down. We were screaming about how ecstatic we were that you were going to be going to Congress. So I'm wondering, how did you feel when you found out that you would be going to Congress and representing Gen Z and your constituents in Florida?
Well, I mean, I felt incredibly blessed, honored, humbled. Both times when I won both the primary and the general, I was surrounded by all my supporters, all of our organizers, all of our, local donors. And really, my first instinct both nights was to just start hugging and jumping and celebrating with my people. Because at the end of the day, look, it might be my name on the ballot, but there's a whole movement, not just behind this, but leading this candidacy. And I understand that wholeheartedly, especially being an organizer myself.
Yeah. So now you're Congressman-elect Frost, which again has such a great ring to it. What does that feel like, and how has the process and experience been like in DC? And I think you were at Harvard too for a leadership training, and so walk us through what that orientation process has been like for you and being a first-time member of Congress.
Well, it's been daunting, right? It's like there's so much coming in. The whole, drinking water from a hose thing I've heard and said a million times during the orientation. So there's just a lot to take in, right? We're learning how to set up our office. We're learning the process of Congress. We're learning how to staff up. We're learning how to be good bosses in the workplace. We're making good relationships with both people across the aisle and also people within our party coming into Congress. We're also on the kind of non-official side trying to figure out where to live. We're trying to figure out how the commute's going to work. We're trying to figure out what our lives are going to look like. So there's a lot incoming. I feel really supported, though. We have people in my freshman class who have been, president of the Senate in their state for 10 years. People who, and they're still, they still feel the same way I feel. So it's not like I'm the only guy there's like, we're getting together. We're all kind of in this boat together, and that also makes me feel a lot better about myself, but also just shows that we're in this together. We're working together. We all help each other. For our freshman class elections, we really let people do their thing, and really didn't have many. I think we had one contested election. But we really wanted everyone to kind of do their thing. We supported each other, and we're supporting each other in the caucus elections as well. And so it's really exciting.
So I've been loving all of your updates because I think it does such an important role. And it's fun to watch along, but I think it does an important role in helping demystify the elements of government, and really I think helps young people to see what happens behind the scenes. And so, I mean, what's been your funnest moment since I guess in this orientation process?
The funnest moments. The way it works is from about 7:30 a.m. to 1 or 2, around 3, you're in classes and you're doing setup of your office. Then after that, you get about a 30 minutes, an hour break, and then you have dinners, happy hours, receptions, events that go to like 11 p.m. And that's really your day, 7:30, 11 every day. And those evening events, it's really stressful. I remember one day we did, I think, 6 or 7 in one night. So we're going to each one for 20 minutes, and saying hi to a bunch of people and leaving and making good relationships. But that was honestly the best part, is like getting to go into here, meet advocates, meet organizers, form good relationships with people. Because at the end of the day, especially in a body like Congress, the relationships you make with people are really key. It really is going to decide whether or not you're able to push legislation through. Making good relationships with people on the other side, with Republicans as well, because in a Republican-controlled Congress, you're going to need some Republicans to help you on your legislation to get things passed. And unfortunately, we're seeing a very growing and dangerous Republican Party. Then it's hard to work with certain folks, but there are still people who, I see myself working with over the coming 2 years to pass good legislation on getting money for community violence intervention, to pass good legislation on supporting the arts and arts funding. We're not going to get everything we want this next 2 years. We know that. That's the consequences of elections, but we can't let go of our North Star and what we believe in. Healthcare for everybody, ending gun violence, combating the climate crisis, all these things.
So I definitely want to ask you more about your vision now that you're in Congress, but I first want to ask you about, speaking of just experiences you've had before becoming a congressman. You tweeted something that I think speaks volumes to the challenges that young people face in politics and government. And I just want to read out what you tweeted. You said, quote, "Just applied to an apartment here in DC where I told the guy that my credit was really bad. He said I'd be fine, got denied, lost the apartment and the application fee. This ain't meant for people who don't already have money." And for those who haven't gone through the process of DC apartment hunting, it's truly like in a whole other category. I interned in the DC, kind of here in the DC area over last summer, and couldn't get an apartment at first because it's either too expensive or too far, or both. And luckily the UC system had something where housing was able to be accommodated, but it's extremely difficult for young people who also don't get paid much in politics. And if they're interning here over the summer, it's just a lack of pay or very low pay. So talk about your experience with that. How has it been so far, and what's the status of that in terms of getting an apartment and living situation here?
Yeah, so like you said, it's hard not just for incoming members who are like working class, but staffers and people moving in, and not just in DC, but in countries around this or in states around this country. And I tweeted that. Number one, I honestly I wasn't really trying to make a statement. I was just kind of mad, and I wanted to tweet about it, to be honest. And then it ended up blowing up, and I'm glad it did, because it really helped call attention to a serious issue. Number one, to say, first and foremost, I'm speaking from a point of privilege, because for the next 2 years, I'm going to be making a good salary in which I'll be able to pay off my debts, in which I'll probably be able to get better credit. However, we're talking about right now, right? And right now, I've gone a year and a half without a job, doing Uber. You can't really pay yourself on your campaign until like the last couple months. And then on top of that, you are expected to have, I have a home here, I have a place here, and then I also have to have a place in DC. I have to have two. And when you apply and you work and you try to get somewhere, you got to do first, last deposit. That's a lot of capital up front. So the thing here, and the point here when I'm talking about candidates and members of Congress, is that it's difficult for members of Congress to figure out where they're going to live. And on top of that, even though in 2 years I will be okay, right? The point of entry to the seat of power is really important, because the point of entry acts as a filter. And what we see is that people who get filtered out are working class and poor people, poor and working class families. So if the point of entry is so small that you have to have a bunch of money to run for office, you have to have a bunch of money to assume office, it determines who's going to get on the other side of that wall. And that's all. That's really the main thing I want to talk about. I know I'm about to make a good salary for 2 years. I understand that. What I'm trying to call out is the fact that getting to that seat of power is increasingly difficult and inaccessible to working class people.
And I think it's that keeps a lot of people away from politics. And AOC responded to your tweet, and I was just shocked. I didn't really know the process of what it's like to first be a member of Congress. And she said apparently the first paycheck doesn't come until February. So basically, you have to work for an entire month, pay living expenses, pay apartment rent, and you still don't get paid until the second month you're actually serving the job. So it's a really hard system. And I mean, is there any way that legislation can be done, or is there an antidote to that?
Well, we're gonna see. I want to try to do everything I can to fight to make Congress more accessible, but also, this is it's a similar problem with state legislatures across the country. I mean, the Florida state legislature, there's a reason why it's a majority rich people, because you spend all this time running for office, and then you get there, and the pay is $29,000 a year.
Wow.
So if you're a working class person, if you're a working class person with a family, you cannot afford, unless you have a spouse or someone who's like makes a good amount of money, you can't afford to just be a legislator. You have to also have another job. What is that job? Well, for a lot of members of the Florida state legislature, they're lawyers, they own businesses, they're already wealthy. So for someone who wants to come into this and say, I want this to be my full-time job, I want to serve the people, it's almost impossible with that kind of salary. So it creates, again, a barrier of entry and a filter where the people who get filtered out of before they get to the seat of power, Black and brown folks, poor and working class folks, people of color. And so it's important to talk about.
So important. So let's talk about, so you're going to be in Congress in less than a month. You're going to be sworn in, and that'll be a very exciting moment. But like you said earlier, you're going to be in Congress during a time when Republicans control the House. They seem like they still have no legitimate policy discussions. But, it seems divided more than ever before. But talk about what committee assignments you've been given so far and how you plan to work within this Republican majority House.
Yeah, this is a great question. So we haven't received our committee assignments yet. Waiting to see what that ends up being. I'm, honored and excited to be where I can really serve the district. Republican Congress, again, we know we're not going to pass the bold transformational change that we need. Look, I'm not trying to be defeatist. I like to be upfront, authentic, and honest about it, because we all have to set expectations and understand what's going to be possible. Politics is a numbers game. It's math. If you don't have the numbers, you don't get the bills. Now, it doesn't mean we can't do good work and set ourselves up for when we take back the House in 2 years and we have the presidency, the House, and the Senate, that we can pick up where we left off, pass bold transformational change, and do what we need to do. And the way we can do that is via amendments the next 2 years. We can do that in the way we appropriate money in the next 2 years, because your budget shows your conscience and what you value as a government and as a country. We can do that in the way we talk about the issues and the way we build power in our localities and the way we interact with organizers, stakeholders, activists. So there's a lot that we can do. If you have a member of Congress who's throwing their hands up in the air saying it's a Republican Congress, we can't do anything, that's a load of BS. There's a lot we can do. It might not be Build Back Better, Medicare for All, or Medicare for All, or Green New Deal, but we can work on getting elements of that through.
Absolutely.
I don't have committees yet, but I am part of 3 caucuses so far: the Progressive Caucus, the Hispanic Caucus, and the Black Caucus. I actually just won an election last week, and I'll be a vice chair. Yeah. So I'll be a vice chair of the Progressive Caucus, which I'm excited about, and I'm also going to be on the executive board of Bold PAC, which is the campaign arm of the Hispanic Caucus, one of the most powerful campaign arms in Congress as far as a identity caucus is concerned. So I'm really excited to be a part of that, and hoping to have a leadership spot in Black Caucus.
Well, we are so excited for you, and we will be following your time in office very, very closely. Maxwell, thank you so much for joining us, and please keep us posted. This is so exciting, and you are really making Gen Z so proud.
Thank you so much, Victor, and thank you to everybody watching. Have a good day.
Bye, Maxwell. Thanks so much. Well, that was a fantastic episode with, again, the first Gen Zer member of Congress, or soon-to-be member of Congress. And like you heard him say, I mean, I think it's so important to see someone like Maxwell Frost in office for Generation Z, because this is a generation, like Maxwell said, the points of entry to get involved in politics are so enormously high, and it becomes really inaccessible for young people to navigate the system. So to have someone like Maxwell Frost, who raises awareness, who shows the transparency of what happens, I think is so critically important. And symbolically, it's important for young people to see someone in office who looks like us, but also just on a policy level, it'll help everyone because it's going to be someone who actually understands our concerns, who listens to us, and who enacts policies that will improve our lives. And so I'm very optimistic to have someone like Maxwell Frost in office, and I think he's going to do a great, great job. As you can see, he's already building relationships, navigating caucuses. He seems to have a house, which is a good first step for any member of Congress. But at the end of the day, I'm very excited. I think all of us should be very comforted to know that Maxwell will be in office and representing his constituents and helping Gen Zers and elevating our voices. So I'm very excited for that. I will be back tomorrow with another episode of On the Move. Be sure to subscribe here, and tomorrow I'll be answering your questions. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section, or you can tweet them to VictorShe2020 on Twitter, or on Instagram, I'm at victor.she12. Feel free to DM me or message me. I will try to get to as many of them as possible. Tomorrow will be Ask Me Anything Day, so be sure to ask me your questions and I will get to them. I will be here tomorrow at 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time with another episode of On the Move right here on Politicon's YouTube page. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching.